The New York Mets are rolling right now, 4 wins in a row, 13 wins in their last 15 games. Chris Bassitt was a bulldog on Monday night on the show today. Of course, we will recap the game, but I also want to focus on a Met that has been amazing since the All-Star break and really has been their most consistent player all year, and that is Pete Alonso. I'm going to make a case for why he could win the MVP this season.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on Twitter at FinkelsteinRyan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. Now, this Mets team just won again. They're now 71-39. The Braves were off on Monday, so they now have a 7-game lead in the National League East and are just looking like the runaway favorites now to take the whole division. I know over recent weeks we have been talking about this Braves team who had been, to their credit, playing like the best team in baseball for a couple of months now. They did a really good job winning a lot of games against some bad teams, let's be honest, but overall still doing what they had to do to climb the standings, and it felt like the Mets were on their heels a little bit because here was this Braves team that every week seemed to cut it down by a game. And there was obviously the one stretch where they couldn't lose that they really chopped down the Mets division lead. But now you're back to that 7-game lead, something the Mets haven't had for a couple of months now. You got just over 50 games left to play. The Mets just hit the 110 mark of their season when it comes to games played. And the roster is shaping up. You have, the Scherzer DeGrom back-to-back starts to close out that series. And then you got your number 3 now, Chris Bassitt, going in a series against a bad team. And what does he do? What any really quality starting pitcher will do in that spot. Look up and down this lineup. Let me just read the lineup the Reds rolled out. And they got hurt a lot. Jonathan India, potentially another hamstring injury now. Who knows if he's going to be here for the rest of the series. He gets pulled for Almora. You got Nick Senzel. Mike Moustakas was their third hitter today. He's batting 200 on the season with a 615 OPS. He got pulled. When Matt Reynolds came in. Matt Reynolds, one of the better players on their team this year. Matt Reynolds, when he went to the Reds this year, I honestly thought he was coaching. That is how far removed I thought he was from playing. And here he has, put together a pretty nice year for a bench player for them. But yeah, I mean, if he's going to be in the starting lineup, that's not someone that you're going to fear. Joey Votto, batting cleanup, 218 hitter, 730 OPS. Donovan Solano, their best hitter in this line tonight, 296, 788. You got Fraley, Aquino, Barrero, Paparizzi. This team, quite frankly, sucks. I hate to just say it that flatly, but they're 20 games under 500. They're third in the NL Central, which shows you pretty much all you need to know about that division, where it's pretty much Brewers, Cardinals. And this is a team you have to steamroll over. And what Chris Bassitt did tonight was he scattered 8 hits. He got all the outs when he needed to. And, 8 strikeouts, 8 innings, very numerically sound line from him. Only run he gives up ends up being an unearned run, as there was a play that Pete Alonso ultimately got charged for an error after initially it was charged as a hit. And it was just utter dominance from this guy. He goes out, he throws it was over 110 pitches, 114. If you look at the top pitch leaders in games for the Mets this year, Bassitt has all but one of those starts, Scherzer right in there. But it's been Bassitt. He's the guy that has given them length. He's the one that's been durable all year. Carlos Carrasco has been durable in the rotation as well. Taijuan Walker has had a couple ticky-tack injuries, mostly been there, but it feels like Chris Bassitt is just always available to give you length. And he does it yet again. Now he's got the ERA on the season at 3.39, and that's what you love about this team. You look at the next couple games here, and you're looking at the pitching probables, and suddenly the rotation makes sense with Scherzer being your ace, DeGrom being your second ace, and your number 2 with the way it's lined up. Bassitt, you got Carrasco going up against Mike Minor, and I don't even remember the exact pitcher they talked about on the broadcast, but the Reds are calling up somebody else to make their Reds debut I feel like it's another journeyman, if I remember correctly, and he's going up against Taijuan Walker on Wednesday. So the Mets have a huge edge here. I don't want to say it's a must sweep because any team can win any game in baseball. That's what is so unique about the sport. It doesn't really matter how bad of a lineup it looks like they're putting out there. If Joey Votto hits a 3-run homer in the first inning tomorrow, the Reds have a good chance to win the ball game. But this Mets team is firing on all cylinders offensively. In the game today, they did just enough. And what did they do as they have most of the season? They get out to an early lead. And you have Brandon Nimmo who falls behind in the count, and then he gets hit in the foot, so he gets bailed out. And Starling Marte hits a home run, his 12th of the season. Marte hitting over 380 in the first inning this year. You have those two guys in Nimmo and Marte that continue to get on base, to work counts, to give you really good at bats. That sets up Pete Alonso and Francisco Lindor to have RBI situations early. And since the All-Star break, this is a team that has been cashing in early and often. You look at Daniel Vogelbach, and once again, this legend is coming through for this team. You had Lindor get a base knock in the third. That was after Starling Marte was already out. He steals second, almost steals third, but he ends up trying to swipe the bag when Pete Alonso was fighting off a 1-2 pitch. Ends up striking out. Alonso does. Lindor stays on second base. Vogelbach, with 2 outs, though, gets the clutch hit to drive him in. And then he ends up coming up big again in the 8th inning with 2 outs, needing a little bit of insurance. Vogelbach doubles. And so that puts the Mets in position. You have Mark Canha come in to run for Vogelbach. Jeff McNeil got hit by a pitch. And then Tyler Naquin clears the bases, just barely missing a home run. Ends up with a triple. That puts the Mets up 5-1. Adam Ottavino gets the last couple outs there to close out the game, which was big because you avoided using Edwin Diaz, who had pitched in back-to-back days. I don't think he was going to go anyway today, but you give him some rest, and that was what Bassitt did that was so impactful to get the Mets through 8, to ease that bullpen. They're playing 5 games in 4 days. That's massive. So I absolutely love what I've seen from this Mets team. You look at what Tyler Naquin is doing since he hit that triple, might as well bring this up. 9 games played for the Mets, 346 hitter, 370 on base, 769 slugging. He has 2 triples, 1 double, and 2 home runs, 6 RBIs, 5 runs scored. Every single move that Billy Upler made at the deadline, outside of Michael Givens, has come up golden for this team. And to go out now, you win 5-1 in this one. Like I said, pretty wide open to win the next 2 games. We'll see if the Mets can pull that off and be on a 6-game winning streak when the Phillies come into town. The Phils are playing good baseball, but this Mets team continues to win. The Braves, who knows, maybe they falter out in Boston. Wouldn't it be funny if suddenly the Phillies and the Braves were duking it out for wild card positioning while the Mets just completely run away with this division? We'll see what happens, but this was just another textbook win for this Mets team. And the funny thing is, the guy I'm planning on talking about for the rest of the show today, who I am writing an article about right now for Just Baseball, is Pete Alonso. And of course, when you write about the guy, he goes 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts and looks lost a little bit up there at the plate. But what we've seen this season is this guy's as consistent as they come. So even if this is the beginning of a short slump, he'll break out of it very soon and continue to be what he's been all season, which is one of, if not the best run producer in baseball outside of, I don't know, maybe an Aaron Judge. That's how good Alonso has been. Before we talk about his MVP case, though, if you haven't tried the Built Bar Puffs yet, you're depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. And guess what? There's a brand new flavor. If you are ready to indulge yourself in some cookie dough goodness that's covered in chocolate, Built has done it again with the cookie dough chunk puffs. They have a chewy texture with real cookie dough chunks, and of course, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. So you get all the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassle of making it. Plus, it's actually healthy for you. That's a big difference. Only 160 calories, and they have a whopping 15 grams of protein in them. These are the snack that you want to go to, the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. They're made with the collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently, providing you with tons of health benefits. Eat something that tastes good and is good for you by going to Built.com and trying the cookie dough chunk puffs. Once you're there, make sure you use the promo code LOCK15. You'll get 15% off your next order. Again, that's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. So as a lot of you listen to this or watch on YouTube on Tuesday, you're going to be able to go to justbaseball.com and find an article I'm in the middle of writing which is titled Making an MVP Case for Pete Alonso. And before anyone jumps down my throats in the comments, I realize Paul Goldschmidt is the runaway favorite right now to be the league MVP. He's hitting 332, 415 on base, 614 slugging. He has a 188 WRC plus. Again, that measures hitters based on a league average of 100. So he's been 88% better than your league average hitter and 35% better than, or 30%. No, I had it right. 35% better than Pete Alonso. I was looking at Nolan Arenado's WRC plus, his teammate, at 158. Freddie Freeman has a 158 WRC plus. So based on that offensive statistic, Goldschmidt and Freeman are having better years than Pete Alonso is, as is Austin Riley, as is technically Nolan Arenado. And F4 is going to back that up as well because Pete Alonso gets dinged for his defense. Meanwhile, you got Lindor, who is currently in the top 10 when it comes to F4. Actually, he's in the top 5 with a 4.7 F4 among National League players. That is tied with Dansby Swanson and Manny Machado, and better than a player like Mookie Betts, although Lindor has played in, 17 more games. You look at Alonso, though, and here is the MVP case for him. It's an old school MVP case, one that I don't know if it holds as much water now, but it's about RBIs. And I know that's outdated. I know we don't care about that anymore in the advanced metric circles. I get it. I understand. It's a stat that is as much of a team stat as an individual stat because he has Brandon Nimmo in front of him getting on base at a great clip, because he has Starling Marte getting on base at a solid clip with all of his speed, able to turn, a double in the gap into any run from first base, able to score from second on any base knock. It helps him driving a lot of runs. And Lindor as well in front of him, scoring a lot of runs this season. So I totally understand those who will be skeptical of me making an RBI case based on runs batted in. With that said, he has driven in 95 runs this year, and that counts for something. And the case for Pete Alonso to be the MVP, it lies in a narrative around this Mets team. The fact that here they are, surging and looking like a real World Series contender that is maybe on their way to running away with the National League East. It's the fact that since Daniel Vogelbach came into the equation after the first 2 games of that first series out of the break, the Mets are 13-2, and Pete Alonso has been driving that offense. You look at his stats since the All-Star break, he's hitting 390, a 486 on base percentage, a 746 slugging percentage. We talk about WRC plus measuring hitters on a league average of 100. His 237 WRC plus since the break is 137% better than your league average hitter. He's been amazing. He's leading the National League in RBIs not only this season, but coming out of the break with 17. His 5 home runs only trail Goldschmidt and Hunter Renfroe, who have 6 apiece. This guy is on a tear right now, and his consistency throughout the season is something that I think has gone a little bit overlooked. Every single month this year, double-digit RBIs for Pete Alonso. You just look at RBIs, WRC plus home runs, right? April, 17 RBIs, 4 home runs, 114 WRC plus. Not a great start to his season. May, he drives in 30. 9 home runs, 173 WRC plus. Talk about consistency the next month, 171 WRC plus, 22 RBIs, again, 9 home runs. July, 16 RBIs, 4 home runs, 124 WRC plus. He's already sitting at 10 RBIs and 3 home runs this month with that WRC plus at 225. That initial mark I was looking at there was at the 227 mark. 237 mark. That's coming out of the break. Oh, that's August. That was the confusion. August is 225. You include those last couple of games in July plus August. That's where you get the 237 mark. But the bottom line here, he's on a tear right now. And let's just kind of envision what could happen and how that could potentially make an MVP case for Alonso. Here's a team, as I already said, doing great in this division. If they were to run away with it, let's just say the Mets end up winning 110 games and really shock us. Now, that would be more than they're on pace for. I think the last I checked, they were on pace for 104. But this is also a team that's playing a lot of bad baseball teams. So, again, we're talking about how the Mets could end up with an MVP. And to me, it's if they end up with the league's best record. So you go to the MLB standings right now, and you look at the Dodgers, right? They are, 75-33. So the Mets are 4 back in the win column, 6 back in the loss column. So was that 5 games altogether? We'll see if they could actually catch the Dodgers, but let's just say they did. And they finished with the best record in the National League. And Alonso is the driving force offensively. His best RBI month, he had 30 RBIs, as I said in May. Let's just say he has 20 more RBIs this month and 25 RBIs in the final month to close out the season. So you take his total right now, you add 45 RBIs to it, right? And suddenly you're talking about what, 140 on the year. If he can get as close to 150 as possible, which is asking a ton, I get it. I understand that is not a likely scenario in this, but if he finds his way closer and closer to that mark, and let's just say he paces the league by 20 RBIs, and the Mets are the best team in the NL, there's going to be a narrative that could kind of be a groundswell for a Pete Alonso. Now, if Paul Goldschmidt continues to be a 330 hitter all the way down the stretch and win a batting title along with everything else he's done, yeah, there's a pretty solid chance he's your MVP because he's also, one of 2 players in that Cardinals offense that has been consistent all year. It's him and Arenado. That is as valuable as a player can be for a franchise. But I think that Pete Alonso is heading very squarely towards a top 5 MVP finish. And that's incredibly impressive for a guy that, 3-4 years ago when he was first making his debut, there was questions about, can he play first base every day? What's his long-term potential? Can he be more than just a slugger? And you look at his season so far, altogether, he's hitting 280. His on-base percentage is almost 360 at 358. Slugging percentage at 545, a 903 OPS. He is just remarkably consistent. And because of that consistency, it has helped carry the Mets through all of their down moments of the season. This is the one guy that has just time and again come through in the clutch. I want to talk about that a little bit more in the next segment here because his high leverage stats are pretty impressive. I'll get into the advanced metrics for Pete a little bit as well. And I want to just kind of focus in on what he's made of his career up to this point because he's also heading towards being, one of the greatest Mets of all time. And he's just getting started. Before we get to that, though, betonline.net is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find out the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news as BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. Remember, before the season, what did I tell you to do? Bet on Pete Alonso to lead the league in RBIs. Right now, he is leading the NL in RBIs. We'll see if he can get the MLB lead from Aaron Judge before season's end. That is how he would have to cash in that bet. But betonline.net is your fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, including MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in the action. Bet online, where the game starts. Before we dive back in on Pete Alonso, just want to focus on this Mets offense. This was prior to the game tonight, but as a team, since Vogelback was inserted into the lineup, they're hitting 312, 379 on base, 513 slugging, 84 runs scored in their last 14 games. Again, this was prior to the game tonight. Their WRC plus as a team, the best mark in baseball at 155. I believe that was 30 points higher than the Brewers, who were second best. Their weighted on-base average at 384 was the best mark in baseball, as was their F-WAR as a team at 5.6 when it comes to their position players. So the lineup has been great since all the additions, and Pete Alonso obviously a big part of that. Getting back to what he's done this season, you're talking about an offense that coming into the day had the 3rd most runs scored in baseball, and Alonso has driven in nearly 20% of them with all of those RBIs, the 95 runs batted in. That was 19.1% of the Mets' total runs this year heading into the day. Now, him and Lindor together have been the best run-producing tandem in baseball with 179 RBIs between them. And you look at what they've done in high-leverage situations, Alonso's hitting 367, 436 on base, 833 slugging, leading the league in high-leverage spots with 4 home runs and 23 RBIs. He also has a 224 WRC plus in high leverage situations, the 3rd best mark in the NL, which is also just 20 points ahead of Lindor, who has the 5th best mark in the NL. Both these guys top 5 hitters in this league in the clutch. You look at the home runs, 29. Where's he going to finish the season? I think 40 is still a reasonable number for Pete. But again, you come down to the RBIs, and he's got a good chance of chasing down Hojo's record when it comes to the Mets franchise lead. I believe it's Hojo. Let me look it up and confirm I am right. Um, single season, was it like Hojo at 129? That's off the top of my head. Howard Johnson, 1989 season. He led in offensive WAR, best season ever when it comes to that. That is an 8 when it comes to offensive WAR. Where are the RBIs? Here we go. It is not Hojo. Hojo had 117. I was way off, actually. He was fifth on the list. Tyler Bernard Gilkey from 96. Got Robin Ventura and Pete Alonso for third on the list at 120. And Mike Piazza and David Wright, my two favorite players growing up, of course, would be the guys that have this single season lead when it comes to RBIs at, again, 124 apiece. So Alonso is right there. I think it'd be pretty shocking if he didn't break that franchise record. And who knows how high he could climb when it comes to the RBIs. But you look at the advanced metrics on Pete this season. Max exit velo, always know he's going to be atop the leaderboards there, 98th percentile. Expected slugging, though, 95th percentile. Hard hit percentage, 86th percentile. Expected WOBA, 92nd percentile. Barrel percentage, 92nd percentile. Expected batting average, 85th percentile. Just great across the board. One of the things I really like, though, is you look at the run values by pitch for Pete this year. And run value is a stat that essentially looks at how a batter or a pitcher fares in a given spot, and it takes the outcome into effect based on what that batted ball outcome was when it comes to a batter, or just the outcome in general on a pitch. So if they strike out on a four-seamer with two runners in scoring position, that's going to negatively affect their run value. If they hit a home run in that spot, that's going to obviously increase their run value because they just added 3 runs to the board. So that's kind of a loose definition here of what run value means. But just look at across the board here as I kind of read these numbers off to you. You got four-seam fastball, run value, +3, slider +7, sinker +9, curveball +8, changeup +4. Hard hit percentage on all of those is over 44%. The only pitch he struggled with this year is cutters and splitters. And those aren't offerings that every pitcher has in the toolkit. So that's what's made him so effective. He's good against every pitch. He has great at bats. You compare what he's done this season to last year, all the numbers are very similar across the board when it comes to, the walk rate. Last year, 9.4. This year, 9.5. Strikeout rate, 19.9 last year, 19.4 this year. Obviously some of the other stats are a little bit better this year, the WRC plus, the average, the on-base percentage, the slugging percentage. He's having a better season, but you kind of look at the plate discipline stuff and where he's hitting the baseball. All of it is very similar to what we saw last year. His outside zone swing percentage, last year 35%, this year 35.6. His, in zone swing percentage, 71.3% last year, 73.6 this year. It's just kind of across the board, very similar. And that just shows you a hitter that has found himself. He is a great cleanup hitter. He is exactly what you want. He has reached the ceiling of what he could have been as a top prospect. I know this year the defensive metrics aren't kind to him. I don't care. The guy doesn't hurt you out there defensively. He has figured that out as well. The eye test to me tells me that he's not the albatross we thought he would be defensively. He might not be having the year he had last season with the glove, but he's still been consistent, and he's played in every game but one this season. So Pete Alonso, absolutely deserving of maybe the team MVP, although, hey, we're going to talk about Francisco Lindor this week as well, how he has been really incredible, how the glove has been so impactful, and the fact that he's having one of his better offensive seasons as well. These are the two guys that are driving your team, and that's why I wanted to spend some time focusing on them as we reach the 110 game mark of the season with 52 left to play. These are the two guys who are penciled in the lineup every single day, and they show up and they're consistent. So that is my MVP case for Alonso. Again, it's more of a case that he's going to be in the top 5, if not the top 3 when it comes to voting by season's end, because I still think Goldschmidt runs away with it, but he's been extremely impressive. Now, before we close out the show today, one last message for Spencer Strider. I don't know if you saw his comments. I don't know if I even need to. You know what? let's pull him up. Let's give him his due here. Um, So Justin Toscano, who used to be on this show a bunch when he covered the Mets beat last year, he sent out some tweets about what Strider said when it came to the Mets following the 5-game series where he got knocked up and knocked out in the third inning, if I'm not mistaken. And these tweets went viral because of how ridiculous and childish this guy sounded. So Strider on his outing versus the Mets, quote, a lot of weird hits. They seem to be having a lot of luck right now offensively. That's great. It's August. We'll see what things are like in October from a guy that has never played in October. Strider on why the Mets are so good at grinding out at bats. Quote, I don't know. It helps when they're getting calls and 1-1 counts turn to 2-1 counts instead of 1-2 counts and stuff like that. When your BABIP is 330 or 340 as a team, it's tough to get quick innings and get quick outs. Basically saying they're lucky. And it reminded me of this guy that used to play on my travel baseball team. You know what? For my dad, I'll even shout out his name. I think his name was Steven Ranch, something like that. This kid threw as hard as could be. Me personally, I mixed my pitches. I was more of a finesse guy. But when you're at that age, when you're 12 through 15, the guys who can throw strikes are the ones that are most successful. The guys that can actually locate. And I remember he got so mad because he just went out there and gave up 3 home runs and he's yelling at me when he gets back in, like, you never give up home runs because you don't throw hard. I throw so hard that they hit out of the ballpark. No, dude. They hit out of the ballpark because you throw hard right down the pipe. That's what it felt like when I read these comments from Spencer Strider. A guy with sour grapes because he lost. He didn't get the results he thought he should get because he thinks he's so talented. And he didn't look in the mirror and think about the pitches he didn't execute. Meanwhile, the Mets were respectful winners, giving the Braves their due after that series. So shout out to Strider for being a complete clown and now having everyone realize it and showing how immature he is. And I think that lack of maturity maybe is the difference between these two teams, and that might just be why the Mets win this division come October, right? Anyway, that's going to be all for this edition of Locked On Mets. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB, hosted by Paul Francis Sullivan. Locked On MLB is where you want to go to stay up to date with everything going on in Major League Baseball. You can follow Locked On MLB wherever you get podcasts.